Hello and welcome to the second episode of the UWAP vlog. My name is Charlotte and I'm the publishing officer here at UWAP Publishing, and I'm going to be talking about some of our new releases. So I said in the first episode that I would be splitting the February talks into two, one for prose and one for poetry, but I'm going to have to split them again because there's too many books to talk about. So in this episode I'll be talking about two of our February UWAP poetry books. UWAP Poetry is our new imprint for poetry which we established last year, and in 2017 we'll be publishing 17 new books as part of this imprint, which is really exciting. So the first that I'll be speaking about of the February releases is Luke Fischer's A Personal History of Vision. Now this is Luke's second collection. He's a writer and scholar based in Sydney and he has a background in philosophy. His poetry is influenced heavily by the work of Rilke, a philosopher and poet who is credited with being one of the most intensely lyrical German language poets. Rilke's philosophy is concerned with describing the human through the non-human, through the things he calls capital T things. He expresses his ideas with physical rather than intellectual symbols. Now those descriptions of Rilke's philosophy comes from an article on the Poetry Foundation website, so I'll put a link to that in the description so you can explore more of Rilke's work and perhaps trace how he's influenced Luke Fischer in his second collection. So Ellen Hinsey, the American writer, describes Luke Fischer's work as finely attuned to the phenomena that reside both under and beyond the surface of things. Luke Fischer describes his own relationship with poetry as thinking about poetry as a mediation and articulation of the truth. And I think this is really apparent when you read A Personal History of Vision as something that Luke is really concerned with. So I'm going to read one of the poems that really resonated with me. It's a shorter poem in the book, and it's called Mistranslation. So, Mistranslation. I'm not sure why. We're in the midst of war. My friend has remained in the tank and thus betrayed me. I turn the missile, aiming at the vehicle. It explodes. I wake to screeching trams outside the flat. Mild morning light gleams on the duvet's hilly terrain. Beautiful, dense, an indication of what you'll find in A Personal History of Vision. The second collection I'm going to talk about is Dark Convicts by Judy Johnson. Judy Johnson is an award-winning writer interested in bringing little-known elements of Australian history to light. The aspect of Australian history that inspired Dark Convicts is the fact that there were 11 black convicts on the First Fleet that came to Australia. The reason these men found themselves on the First Fleet was the fact that they were emancipated by the British during the American War of Independence in exchange for fighting with the Loyalists against George Washington's Patriot Army. Once the war was over, these men were taken to poverty-stricken, overcrowded London, where they often had to turn to petty crime, and as a result were deported to Australia. So Dark Convicts is a poetic response to the experiences of these men, two of which are Judy Johnson's ancestors. So Dark Convicts is infused with intense archival research and is really rich in the history of this period, in imagining the moments in these men's lives. I will read a portion of one of the poems in this collection because they are quite lengthy, quite rich in detail, so I won't be able to read the entirety of the poem. But what I'm going to do is read the first few stanzas and the contextualizing note for counsel for the defence. So the note reads, "For the most part there was no defence counsel and character witnesses for the lower classes accused at trial in Georgian Britain. Therefore, prisoners, white and black in the dock, were forced to defend themselves. As a mandatory death sentence by hanging applied to the theft of goods over the value of 40 shillings, the few words they were allowed to say on their own behalf could literally be a matter of life or death, and resulted in some inventive and impassioned speeches. I'm going to resist the urge to put on a London accent to read the first few stanzas of Counsel for the Defence. So here goes. Your Honour, Sir, as the good Lord is my witness, I did not nick those things, but instead picked them up from where they lay under a hedge. I was taking that bundle of linen to be washed, sir. We was promised those slabs of wood on account of mending that gentleman's shoes. I never knew where my companion got them clothes. George, says I, George, why are you so handsomely rigged? I had no more plan of taking those garments, sir, than I have to dance a jig this very minute. He said to me, which weren't true, you infamous hussy, you got my watch. So I called him a snotty little monkey. I'll be bound afore, and yes, sir, skating on the edge of law, I confess affront, and I knocked him to the ground. I'm going to stop there, but a note about this poem, which I probably should have said before reading it, is the fact that the text on the page is displayed in 3 different ways: regular font, italics, and bold, and it gives the sense of voices, a cacophony of testimonies and appeals to the judge. It gives the sense of multiple voices, which is quite effective, I think. So those are the 2 poetry collections for this episode. Any links, any things of interest, I'll put in the description. And if you have any requests for backlist books, tweet at us at UWAP Publishing, post on Facebook and the like. Thank you very much.